Hello and welcome to the Shack News Chattycast, the podcast that finds it so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. I'm your host, Steve Watts. With me this week, Ozzy Mejia.
Hey, everyone.
And Stephen Wong.
Hey.
This is the Chattycast season finale of sorts, as we called it, on the Google Hangout and in our weekly thread. We'll explain what that means a little bit at the bottom of the show, but this is our first full year of shows. We've done 52 shows. We've missed a week here and there, but it happened last summer. We started it off, so it's been about a year. So we're celebrating by sort of having our last show that is exactly like the old format, and we're going to sort of be making a few changes, nothing too severe, starting next week. But we will explain that a little bit later. This week we have our usual slate of topics. If this is your first Chattycast, how weird, because it's the last one using this format. Here's how it has worked for the last 52 shows. Ozzy starts a thread in the Shack News Chatty, asks for some topics, you guys suggest topics, and then we chat about them. So, Chattycast. This week we have some gaming topics from two of our chatty users, but first we're going to get around to what we've been playing. Ozzy, what has been occupying your time, other than San Diego Comic-Con, obviously?
Yeah, I have been doing San Diego Comic-Con. I got to check out a lot of what Nintendo had in store for this fall, like Mario Maker, Legend of Zelda Triforce Heroes, Yoshi's Woolly World, which is kind of an odd one now that it's actually out in Europe and getting released and such. And then there's
I don't know why they favored Europe with that one. I'm a little angry.
It's strange, isn't it? They're bringing it to Comic-Con like, hey, here's a demo of a game that is already out 2 weeks ago. If you're in like Germany or something, it's the weirdest thing. But on top of that, I've been really getting into Rocket League, which Rocket League has I mean, it's been a while since we've had like
it's car soccer, right? Like that's the gist.
It's motorized soccer pretty much, yeah. But it's not just soccer, but it's soccer in the sense that a lot of like the more undesirable rules of it have been thrown out. Like there's no out of bounds line, there's no flopping or anything like that. I mean, your cars can explode, but that's hardly considered flopping. But yeah, there's no penalties, nothing like that. It's just basically straightforward. Just go from start to finish. Like it's a flat 5-minute game, which makes it a lot of fun. There are a lot of really cool moments that happen whenever you're like making a comeback from 2 down or anything. And the cars are fast enough that you can mount those comebacks in such a small amount of time. So I'm really having a lot of fun with Rocket League.
And I saw it on the PlayStation Plus offerings, and I'm like, I'm not really into soccer, but it sounds like it's worth it.
It's definitely worth it. I'd say give it a shot. And on top of that, a lot of our chatty users are actually really starting to get into it. I'm starting to see daily Rocket League threads, which is pretty cool. And it has cross-platform play. Like you can play across PS4 and PC. So if you have like either of those versions, you can play against one another. It had some iffy online issues to start with. Like it's been hard to connect to a game here and there. I'm hoping that it gets worked out really soon. Like I haven't had a chance to log in yesterday for obvious reasons, but I'm hopeful that it gets hashed out because it's a tremendous game. The games that I have, the game that I have been able to get into. The games that I've been able to get into have been really solid. Like I've actually got connected to a European server, like late Monday night, and it ran pretty flawlessly. So that's something to keep in mind. So give it a look. It's free on PlayStation Plus. You have nothing to lose.
Yeah. Well, if you're a PlayStation Plus member.
Except hours of
but
your
who
life.
Isn't? Who owns a PS4 and is not a PlayStation Plus member? I don't understand why you would do that. So, Steven, what have you been playing?
Ever since I finished the 90% conclusion to Arkham Knight, I've decided to take a little break and recoup my life and try to get things back in order. But this weekend I'll be playing more games for review and such.
You know, if it wasn't the only game of the summer right now, I'd actually wonder if the ending is worth talking about, because, I mean, some people are probably putting it off, so it's probably not safe to talk about the ending at the moment, but there's so much about it I want to vent about.
Maybe one day we'll have a spoiler edition of Arkham Knight. There's a lot of plot twists. There's the one big twist that I feel like is probably the thing that is angering Ozzy, but there's actually a lot of plot in that game. I think probably more so than previous Arkham games even. So
A lot of fan service too.
Yeah, a lot of it. I also wrapped that up this week. Wrapped up my Arkham Knight experience, and I can say without spoiling, there's a moment after you beat the game that you can continue to do side quests, and it's like, well, if you do all the side quests, you get the really good ending. And I started down that path, and I got pretty far in it. I got maybe most of the missions done, but then after a little while, it was just like, this is infuriating. Like, I'm not gonna hunt down 200 Riddler trophies and
243 Riddler trophies.
Yeah, for the best ending, get all 243 Riddler trophies.
And I know when you're in the thick of the experience, there's a feature that I kind of like that becomes kind of irritating after you're done. The whole, we're not going to tell you where missions are. You're Batman. You should be patrolling the city and just figuring out where stuff is. It's like, that's cool when you're in the moment. That's like a cool concept. But once you're done and you're just like, I just want to get this stuff done. Oh wait, there's like 7 checkpoints left to clear out, and I have no idea where they are.
Usually, most games give you like a freebie giveaway, like, oh, spend a few points in this upgrade and you have like
and then you get
ultimate bat scanner, and it'll scan the entire city.
But Batman does not do that. It's like, you are either going to look up a guide online, which we have at checknews.com, or you're going to wait a couple minutes, because every few minutes they'll be like, intel has just arrived for this mission. But it's like, if you do that, it's never as fast as you're completing missions, and you just kind of have to wait for it, and you kind of have to go in the order they want you to go in. You can't just like do this kind of mission over and over and over again until that whole quest line is done. That's not how they dole out the intel. So it's really like not ideal. I think at least after you finish the main story quest, they should be like, okay, Batman, while you were finishing the main story quest, we scanned the city, and now we know where all of these things are.
The Batwing has that whole sonar, radar, whatever thing installed.
The Batwing is spinning the entire game flying over the city.
I love that there's actually specifically a mission where you're like, well, the Batwing can't fly over the city because they're like drones that are and a cannon that's patrolling the area. You go clear it out, and like, okay, the Batwing can fly over the city now. Not going to use it, but
it does nothing. It sure would be helpful to have a jet in this situation.
Most underappreciated device in his arsenal.
Yeah. He's got a jet. He's got a drone jet that flies around. Anyway, so.
And the worst thing is, there's one Riddler mission, and this isn't really a spoiler. There's one Riddler mission where he's just like, aha, I have outwitted you because I have planted explosives into these criminals' heads. And my whole purpose for doing this is to prove that there are limits to how much you give a shit about these saving people. And I'm down to like the third guy. I have no idea where he is. Yeah. And I'm just like,
I can't prove that I give a shit if I don't know where they are.
Really? And I'm just like, I guess it's a success. I officially don't give a shit anymore.
I don't care.
How is this a riddle? I don't know.
It's not. How is finding a breakable object and shooting it with your bat cannon a riddle? It's not.
Riddle me this. Find this dude on a map. It's a Where's Waldo game.
Riddle me this. Racetrack. There's a lot of weird things about that game. We'll have a spoiler edition at some point. I'm sure we'll have to talk about it, because as video game fans, there is crossover with comic fandom, and I think there's a mixture that makes people extra passionate about this in particular. I wrapped up Arkham Knight. I was sort of like, well, I can dive back into The Witcher because that's sort of my in between anything else I'm playing. I'm slowly working my way through The Witcher, but we got that news of the patch notes, and I was like, well, I'll just wait for the patch to hit, and then it just isn't hitting. So I've sort of been like looking for something to play. I've been playing a lot of Hearthstone, the Tavern Brawl this week, and things like that.
Tavern Brawl's a lot of fun.
The Tavern Brawl this week is the best so far. Well, it's the one I've played the most, so it's the best in my opinion. It's if you haven't played the Tavern Brawl, this is a week that I think more than others that like you don't need to have a good collection because it's all spell based. So as long as you just have the basic spells, which you get just by playing any class, you can make a pretty good workable deck. And I'm seeing a lot of druid, mage, and priest. I'm seeing like almost none of anything else.
It's a lot of it's a lot of like really expensive spells, like bringing out the same value
Yeah, I want to
minions.
try Paladin sometime before it ends. I haven't yet because that's sort of my class, but I've mostly been sticking with Priest because it's so fun when they break out a big threat and you hit Mind Control.
Oh.
You get their big threat plus a Deathwing. it's it's like the most fun, like swingiest kind of craziness. And I think during one of my, this is just a crazy story. During one, I did a mind vision thing, whatever that priest spell is that you can see
Yeah.
someone within their hand, and I got his Prophet Velen, like the legendary. So I'm like,
Nice.
okay, I know he has one in his hand right now. So I waited for him to play it. I mind controlled it, and then I think I grabbed two of his. I mind controlled his, so I had three on the board. And I did like that little two spell, that 2 mana spell that does
The
5 damage.
resurrect spell. Oh god.
It ended up doing 48 damage.
Nice.
So it makes the crazy randomness of this week's brawl makes for like some pretty wild stories in that way.
And it's like the one instance in this game where you're gonna look at Lotheb and Emperor Thaurissan and be like, yeah, I don't want those guys in my
I
deck.
know, yeah, those are terrible cards.
Yeah.
Like, I sometimes forget that when like you randomly do a it also results in like weird random effects, like because the random minion that it summons on board, for anyone who doesn't know, this week's like when you cast a spell, it summons a minion at the same cost. So when you cast a spell, if it happens to summon something like the minion that lowers the cost of spells, it can like count that, or like if it increases spell damage, it'll like count that in the spell you just cast before that thing was on the board. It makes for like really weird situations that are very unpredictable, and I think that's kind of what makes it fun. Like it's not the same old like ranked mode where you're like, okay, I'm gonna see Patron Warrior and I'm gonna see Control, like it's
You'll still see those, but not just
you
not
still
as
see them. Yeah, you still see, like the druid deck that everyone's playing is basically just straight up ramp druid, but more spell based and minion based. But it's a little more unpredictable and crazy fun, and I kind of feel sorry that they're going to be retiring it at the end of the week because I'm playing this like way more than ranked mode. Like all of my daily quests, I've been like hoping that there's something that I can do in Tavern Brawl.
Yeah, no kidding. I kind of want to see some of these come back.
They did actually. They are going to come back. I think Ben Brode said on Twitter like they're going to cycle back old ones sometimes, and I'm sure they're watching the data to see which ones are more popular to like steer future ones.
Yeah.
So hopefully they learn a lesson. This is something that I actually said last week when they had that spiders challenge. I was like, this kind of proves that like the randomness is more fun than the build a deck thing. And this week you are building a deck, but you're building it in a way that you're counting on randomness. So I think just putting random wacky elements in Tavern Brawl is way more fun than trying to be competitive. Like I think there's like a net deck out there for Druid that everyone's using, and it's like don't turn this into ranked mode. People don't like don't make this some ultra competitive stupid thing. It's fun. It's fun.
With that said, if somebody did make an ultra stupid competitive thing out of this, I'd watch it. I'd watch it.
Yeah, like the Tavern Brawl tournament. Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds fun. So anyway, that's what I've been playing. Has anybody else been occupying themselves with anything in particular that they would like to talk about?
Arkham Knight has consumed us all. That's all
It seems like it.
say.
Yeah, I'm putting Arkham Knight to bed now, but it was good enough that I'm like strongly considering the season pass because I'm like I'm done with that story, but I kind of feel like I would like more stories with that
Well,
engine.
it's a good thing because there's not much coming out next week, and it's a good time to get into the Batgirl story. That's out on the 14th.
Yeah,
I'm kind of done with Batman. I'm just
yeah.
like,
Steven, we've talked about it in the chat before. When Steven finished Batman, he was like, "Okay, I'm done." So let's dive into that a little bit, Steven. Like what about the way that it ended, without spoiling, or the way that this game just kind of resulted in general?
it's just
Made
too
you just
much.
feel like
It was
I've
just too
had
much.
my fill.
It was
Yeah.
just too much of everything. It was too much Batmobile. It was too many Riddler trophies. Too much, just like, and I only finished it at 90%. I didn't get the super good ending. I only got the moderately good ending, and because I skipped the two.
I got the moderately good ending, and then I YouTubed the super good ending, and I was like,
Yeah.
I would be pissed if I
I YouTubed.
if I put
I
dozens
YouTubed
of hours into,
I YouTubed the
into
super
that
good ending
extra
too.
minute of ending.
And I was like, that's okay. I don't need that.
Yeah. When you watch it, I don't know, Ozzy, have you watched it on YouTube or anything?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, when you get the like the kind of good ending, because there's like the fake out ending, and then they're like, there's more to this.
Yeah, I'm working on ending 2 at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. So there's ending two, which is like okay, and then there's the good ending. When you actually do like finish ending two and then look up the good ending or actually complete it or whatever, it's like that's it. Like that's like that's all.
I got 243 Riddler trophies for this.
Yeah, like I said, I would be pissed. Like because it's about an extra minute of ending, and it ends like basically the way you would expect given the other ending. So
So it's like
like
a
I
so
was
on a
actually
scale
I
of
was
1
actually
to Mass
hoping
Effect 3, it's like a 7.
I was I was really hoping that Alfred would end up in Paris sipping tea, and
and he looks over.
he looks over.
Batman and Catwoman. Yeah, maybe that was all in his mind. Anyway, let's move on to our chatty suggested topics. This first one is from, I think it's from Bad Kitty. Yes, from Bad Kitty 64. In light of Greg's recent Stuff That Sucks video, have you funded any games on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, etc.? If so, what was your experiences, likes, dislikes, etc.? Speaking for myself, just to kick us off here, I don't contribute to gaming-related Kickstarters at all, ever, as a general rule. It's just kind of a personal rule that I know some other game journos tend to adopt because it basically means you can't cover that game. Like, and if there's a game out there that I think looks cool enough that I would want to contribute to it, it also means that I probably want to cover it. So I just don't do it at all. But what about you guys? Have you guys actually contributed to anything?
I generally operate on the same rule, but I made an exception for Amplitude, and I think
Yes.
it's because Amplitude
And
is like
and
1 hour.
full disclosure, Ozzy disclosed that when he did it, and we're like, okay, well then Ozzy's not doing any Amplitude coverage.
Oh yeah, it's obvious that I'm not covering Amplitude.
Because we
But,
have principles.
But they were like at the 11th hour, they were like about halfway to their goal. So it's and then they just
Yeah.
made that
You're
amazing.
like,
last
oh, I need to push it over the edge. Yeah.
Yeah, they basically streamed for like 24 hours straight, just kind of like pushing that Kickstarter over the edge, and just it was so much fun to watch. And I go, all right, I can't not help out with this.
Yeah.
So.
The 11th hour push to the end thing can be really exciting, especially when they haven't made their goal yet. When they're just trying for a stretch goal, it's not as exciting. But when they haven't made their initial goal and it's either it's going to get funded or it is not, that's when it's
I'm
fun to watch.
sensing we're not going to get the same 11th hour push for something like Red Ash.
Oh God, Red Ash! It breaks my heart. We can talk about that.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart so much as a huge Mega Man fan and as a Mega Man Legends fan who kind of wishes that had been completed. But we were talking earlier a little bit about some of the problems with that campaign specifically. I think we can probably dip into that with our likes and dislikes, even if we haven't had personal experience with it. We can sort of critique like what works and what doesn't work in a Kickstarter. But before I get to all that, Steven, have you contributed to any Kickstarters?
I've contributed to a number of Kickstarter products, and 1 or 2 games. One of them is a card game that we wouldn't cover here anyway, and the other one was Defense Grid 2. And I don't participate that much. I don't contribute that much. Like for Defense Grid, I gave like $20 for like the early bird special. They're like, you could get the whole game for $20 and some artwork and stuff. I'm like, yeah, why not? $20. And I didn't write anything about Defense Grid, so that was my thing. And generally, my experiences have been positive. I mean, the card game that I gave $20 to still hasn't been developed yet, and it's been like over 3 years, I think. But you know what? It was $20. I wanted to help the guy. I wanted to help the guy out and see if he could get this off the ground. And it genuinely looked like a good card game. And I still get regular updates saying like this is not a dead project. It is still being worked on.
They're insisting that it's still going to happen.
Well, he occasionally has screenshots, and he had this whole lengthy explanation about how like midway through the development process, he met up with this guy who was like a veteran collectible card game developer, and he was like, I'll show you how to do stuff, and he ended up taking a whole bunch of money, blowing all the money on stupid shit, and then dropping out of the project. So um, so he had to recover
That
from
sounds
that.
like a pretty big mess of a Kickstarter. Like,
Yeah. So he had to, the creator had to recover from that financial blow, and now he seems to have gotten things back on track. And I'm still getting regular updates saying like, "Is this still happening, people? We will be going into alpha someday."
So, like I kind of alluded to, we talked a little bit earlier privately during just a staff meeting about some Kickstarter problems. I think that's something that we can sort of explore here, since none of us have, you know, contributed that much to Kickstarters. It sounds like we've all done it like here and there, but not much.
Haven't been ripped off by Kickstarters.
Yes, haven't been ripped off by Kickstarters. Like, we all have limited experience with Kickstarters. But we can talk about sort of like what generally works and doesn't work in a Kickstarter campaign, and I think Red Ash is a good jumping off point for that, because there's been a lot written this week, especially about it's sort of off to a slow start, let's say. It's sort of puttering to a start. And I think there's probably a lot of reasons for that, but one thing that I think sort of warrants discussion is the way that they're posing it is, this is $800,000 for a working demo that you get to play on PC, and then hopefully we get to take that to publishers and get interest from investors and things like that to make a full game out of it. And so that's actually not that different than how a lot of Kickstarters work. A lot of Kickstarters, the initial investment is just to show interest so they can take it to investors. Bloodstained was famously like that. A lot of games are like that. That's just kind of how it works, because the actual amount of money required to make a game is much higher than a Kickstarter campaign can realistically ask for.
Nobody likes to be told that they're the taco date.
Yes, you're the taco date. That's what Kickstarter is. Like, you're the cheap. We need to show that there's interest in this date, and that's how almost every Kickstarter recently, at least, has worked, because very quickly after Double Fine hit it big, there was that big explosion of Kickstarters, and very quickly developers realized, like, hey, the amount of money that it actually takes is not an amount of money that we can ask for, because we will never raise that much. And so,
most of the Kickstarters that have been successful have had publisher backing of some sort.
Yeah, that's what they do. They get the investors. They're like, look at how many backers we got. Look at how much excitement this generated.
Yeah, but even they needed Paradox to make it through to the end.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the whole point. They show a level of commitment and passion behind the project to investors and publishers, and then they're the ones who actually fund the full thing. So Red Ash isn't doing anything radically different. I think this is kind of a sad commentary, but I think the thing that it's doing different is like being kind of honest about it.
It's okay. There's nothing wrong with being the taco date. Just don't talk about it. Just don't.
Yeah, you don't tell someone they're the taco date. And it also sort of has sort of sad echoes of Mega Man Legends 3, which, I don't know how closely you guys followed that news, but as a fan, I was following it pretty closely, and they announced it. When Capcom announced it, it was, this is the Mega Man Legends 3 project. They didn't call it Mega Man Legends 3. They called it the Mega Man Legends 3 project. And they were soliciting a lot of fan feedback. They opened up a section of the community boards for, like, specifically for feedback and things like that. And it was very obvious that, like, they were fishing for goodwill, for, like, a public response. And when they didn't get it, that's when they dumped the project. And so when Red Ash comes along and has similar, like, people just don't seem passionate about this, it kind of makes me wonder if Capcom was right, and and there just wasn't enough public interest behind Mega Man Legends 3, and they were right to cancel it. Because so far, obviously the campaign still has almost a month left, so lots of things can happen. But so far, there's only 4,000 backers, and if if you consider day one Kickstarter funding like day one sales, if you said our day one sales was 4,000 people, that is like a terrible sales number.
Unless they paid $1,000 each.
Yes, unless they each paid, unless all of them are extremely devoted and each paid $1,000, then it would be pretty good. But let's talk about some other things, not necessarily related to Red Ash, but some other things that work really well and maybe don't work so well. About Kickstarters. I've heard some people actually complain about the idea of stretch goals, like hey, give us more money. We know we hit our goal, but we still got time left, and we don't want people to stop giving us stuff. So we have to make up some other things.
I personally like the idea of stretch goals because when Double Fine, when Broken Age got overfunded, that just encouraged Tim Schafer to go nuts and go, hey, I'm going to make this game even bigger, and then he blew his budget, and he's like,
yeah, then nothing things happen.
So
But
like
stretch
with
goals in general, I think are probably a good idea. It's sort of the same problem with like what we were talking about with Red Ash, where like they set the initial goal kind of low. You know, like if they do that in a conscious way related to stretch goals, that could be, you know, potentially an issue. If like the real game is a stretch goal, basically.
I mean, you can say that Capcom may be right, or that that the public just isn't interested in a PC only working demo of a potential game.
Of a let's face it, Mega Man Legends game. I mean, like
one that was made famous on consoles. It's kind of strange.
it was a PlayStation game historically, and I mean, I guess it was Mega Man 64, which was Legends 1. But yeah, I mean, like if people don't know about Mega Man Legends, like this is straight up Mega Man Legends. Like like the character art and the description of the story and the title, like it is as much a middle finger to Capcom as Mighty Number 9 was. But it's a more obscure series, so I don't know if people are like noticing it as much. But it's very like.
Although you saw the similarities right away. With
Yeah, it's nail on the head, like obvious. It's come at me, bro. Lawsuit, obvious. Like he's just daring them at this point.
You're just like that big guy just teasing with a haircut.
It's teasing with a haircut. It's Mega Man Volnut, but dressed in red instead of blue. And the little trailer thing even showed a like little flash of character art of a character that was wearing an emblem like Tron. I'm expecting any minute now for them to introduce like some serve-bot knockoff, like the help bots. They're little yellow Lego men looking things.
It's a blue Lego.
It's a little blue Lego man looking thing.
Yeah, look up the character's name, but yeah, he's all over the Kickstarter page. Like little blue robot.
Oh, that's right, they are. I thought of the blue robots more like Data the monkey, but I guess that is more like a servbot.
By the way, subtlety, blue robot, eh?
Yeah, huh? And like, by the way, Data the monkey. Like, if you haven't played Mega Man Legends, there's a little monkey that dances around named Data, and he's the one you talk to whenever you want to save your game.
Is that a stretch goal?
But his whole thing is just he dances. Like whenever his idling animation is just to like dance. It's adorable. Anyway, do we have anything left to talk about?
The robot's name is Gopher.
Yeah.
The robot's name is Gopher. Like it's a little similar to Surfbot, but not. Yeah. It's not too far off.
Does he have other uses? Like, can you send him off to pick up loot for you and then sell it at the market?
There needs to be like a spin-off game where that Tron Bond knockoff uses the Gophers to do mini games, and there's like a weird S&M joke in there somewhere. Just to make it.
Did they re-release that game on PS2?
They released it not too long ago as a PS1 classic.
It's a bizarre one to re-release.
It is super weird. See, the thing is, I would love to replay Legends 1 and Legends 2. I'm sure the controls probably don't hold up very well at all because that was sort of before analog stick was a thing. I would love to replay those, but I've always heard like, oh, copyright issues. There's something about the licensing of the voices, I think, that people were saying they couldn't do it. But now with Tron Bond being released, maybe they found a way around it. Who knows? Do we have anything else to talk about regarding Kickstarters, Indiegogos, things that work and don't work?
Just getting back to the stretch goal topic for a second, I think stretch goals are a good thing because if a project gets overfunded, the contributors have a better idea of what that overfunding is going toward. Like, is it a new level or a new?
It's not just going off into like a black pit where it's like, oh well, I guess Tim Schafer's really rich.
Because technically speaking, according to the rules of Kickstarter, any money that they gather beyond the initial goal, they could spend it on whatever they want.
Yeah, yeah,
They want to
take
spend that
themselves to
money.
a nice vacation if they'd like.
Yeah.
That should be somebody should have the balls to just make that a stretch goal. Just like I'm going to Hawaii, stretch goal.
Tim Schafer goes to Hawaii, and he videotapes the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, like for a dev documentary? No.
It's just
No,
me taking selfie videos.
Just for fun.
And the selfie stick.
Now this is probably requires more Kickstarter historian knowledge than any of us have. But was Double Fine the first one to do stretch goals? Was that really a thing on Kickstarter before Double Fine made it huge?
I don't know.
That's a good question, actually.
Yeah, we should find that out.
I don't.
Only we knew people whose job it was to find out information and report on it.
I know that Broken Age didn't have stretch goals, and that's why that allowed Tim Schafer to go wild. And I think.
Well, I mean, they usually introduce the stretch goals after the initial one's been met. Like, I'm sure they have them ready, waiting in the wings. But you hardly ever see a Kickstarter that goes up and the stretch goals are just like listed from the beginning. You know. I don't know why. I think they just don't want to bust that out. They
don't want to jinx it.
Yeah, they want to get the initial excitement and get the bump from that, and then maybe get another wave of excitement where somebody who's already contributed 50 is like, yeah, I'll pop in an extra 20 for these stretch goals or whatever. There's probably all sorts of smart strategizing behind it that I'm not privy to.
The first time I saw a stretch goal listing was when I was keeping an eye on Shadowrun Returns. And that got overfunded so much they put up a list of like, well, now we can do this, and then they put up a list of other things that they could do if only they had this amount of money, and those became stretch goals. So that's as far as I can remember.
Same deal with Shovel Knight. Like they hit their goal, and then they started adding like the DLC campaigns and the 3DS features, or even like 3DS and Wii U versions, like. It just kind of kept going from there, and it gave them something to shoot towards.
Yeah. And Shovel Knight, I mean, that's one of those infamous Kickstarter success stories, right? Like there's a handful, maybe like.
That's one of the rare ones. It's one of the rare ones that they fully went with Kickstarter, and that's solely funded through Kickstarter. And
it was a pretty small scope. It wasn't one of those games that they were like, oh, we can make another like AAA Castlevania-like game with a very small amount of money. It was like, we're gonna make an NES style game, and I'm sure the by now they're just straight up sales have more than made up for it because that game was a huge success. But yeah, there's probably like I would say less than 10 examples of like Kickstarter being the Kickstarter game coming out and being kind of universally beloved and what people wanted it to be, and an unmitigated success. And Shovel Knight's one of them. So, GG, Yacht Club. I keep waiting for the Plague Knight DLC. I keep remembering that the Plague Knight is coming, and I'm like, oh, that makes me happy.
Well, at least we know that. At least we have like a sort of like window. Like we know it's coming before October.
A semi-window, yeah. Like I'll forget sometimes. Like I'll see Shovel Knight like on my 3DS, and I'll be like, why is this still on my 3DS? I beat it a long time ago. Oh right, Plague Knight. Yeah, that's still happening. So it's taking a while.
Still 2 more campaigns after that, so we'll be playing Shovel Knight for quite a while.
Yeah. What are the others? Have they announced what knights are the others?
I know off the top. I don't remember off the top of my head. I think King Knight was one, and
that seems hard because he's the huge one, right? King Knight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems. You got to do some crazy level design to make that even work, I think.
I do like that they're actually giving stories to these guys. Like they actually made like an original story for
the story of Shovel Knight was good. It was like you've got this weird little 8-bit game, but it got a surprising amount of narrative heft out of like these little sprite characters. It was a cute, sweet, simple fairy tale kind of story. It was good. Anyway, let us move on to our next gaming topic. Our next one from Himtroll. Name a game that you're interested in, but that you find too intimidating and complicated to start exploring on your own. Explain why, and maybe someone can recommend a game. The first thing that comes to mind for me, sorry to jump in immediately here. The first thing that comes to mind to me is just MOBAs in general. All MOBAs, every MOBA ever. And
One of the replies to that suggestion was they're gonna start talking about MOBAs again.
yeah, of course we are. Like, of course, because like, it's an intimidating genre. As an outsider, you hear about how insular the community is, and I think that might be overemphasized to some extent. I think a lot of communities are insular. I think I'm crazy about Hearthstone. I'm sure Hearthstone is very insular. If I were from the outside looking in, I'd be like, those people are crazy, you know. So I feel like MOBAs might be the same way, and it might be more intimidating than it actually is if you just got in. But it's one of those things that feels hard to get into. And I feel like most people's response would be, well, try Heroes of the Storm, which I hear is kind of the starter MOBA. MOBAs for dummies.
I've played MOBAs. They just didn't hold my interest.
Yeah, I mean, I played that Lord of the Rings one for review a long time ago, and I was like, all right. But I don't get the crack addict aspect of it, where you hear some people that they're like, oh, you play video games? That's nice. I play Dota. Like, that's what I play. and that's the one thing.
Congratulations, you did it.
So there must be something that makes it so that matches feel dynamic every time and people don't get bored. And maybe that's what I don't really get about it yet. You know what I mean?
I think it's the competitive aspect.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind competition. I'm not really into competitive shooters, but I don't mind competition, you know, in other genres. So I don't know. What's a genre that you've been interested in but never really got into, Steven?
Survival crap.
Survival crap. So DayZ at all, like all of those styles?
Yeah, DayZ and all those, even Ark, and just the games where you're dropped in the middle of nowhere and you're expected to just scavenge whatever and try to survive for as long as you can. I'm just not into it, which is weird because I really liked Don't Starve, but
yeah, which is kind of one of those in a way. So I've also heard comparisons between those and like Minecraft. You know, like it is very much about scavenging and finding stuff,
and building stuff.
And building stuff, yeah. Like
stuff.
It's got the same building blocks, but it's approachable and arguably the whole trend.
I think the big problem with me is that I don't want to have like hours upon hours of progress erased because some dickhead decided to rob me.
Yeah, it's the persistence is what turns you off. It sounds like
look at my mighty hut made out of twigs. Aha! It took me a month to build this. Some asshole comes by and burns it.
While I'm off the server, someone comes along and is just like, "This looks like a nice hut." I'm gonna wreck it and take all the stuff. Ozzy, what's a genre that you maybe would like to get into?
Well, I'm in Steven's camp that I'd love to learn more about the survival game, and I've attempted Don't Starve a couple times, and I am awful at that game.
That's the charm of Don't Starve. It's okay
true.
to be awful.
Yeah, everyone's terrible at first.
Because
that's how every survival game is.
There's no random person who comes in and steals your shit. It's just the monsters to survive against.
Well, yeah, I've tried getting into games like H1Z1 where like I kind of get the gist of it, but I don't survive for very long, and when I don't survive for very long, I didn't really plan out, so I'm just kind of starting from scratch. Kind of bad news there. There was another one that I was thinking of, and it's the Dark Souls type of game. Like
yeah,
I wouldn't exactly know what.
I went with MOBAs, but I was also thinking like, oh yeah,
I think
the Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, that whole.
I think they're called like genre. The masochistic RPG genre.
Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna give Bloodborne a shot at some point. I mean, I tried it out a couple times at demos and I've been horrible, but I'm gonna sit down a full weekend with Bloodborne for no other reason than when we're doing the Game of the Year evaluations in December. So gotta play it eventually, and you know it's a good time with the slow summer months. But it feels so intimidating because you just go in, you're facing like a giant demon with like maybe only like a small sword at your disposal, and like I don't know. Like it's just the pacing of it just kind of like turns me off a little bit. Maybe because I'm not looking to kind of like invest tens and tens of hours into trying to beat one guy, but I'm sure I'm gonna find the charm in it somewhere. I'm sure I'm gonna learn the hard way, and who knows? I'll probably chronicle like my jump into those types of games because at some point I'm gonna eventually jump in. I was a little disappointed that I did not get the opportunity this week due to circumstances beyond everyone's control. I was going to get into Dark Souls 3 this week, and at Comic-Con, it did not quite work out the way I hoped. But,
Yeah, I mean there are people I know and like voices in the industry I respect who like are addicted to those games, and I'm like there has to be something to it that I'm not getting. Like I played Dark Souls, I played Demon Souls, I played Bloodborne, and every time I just hit a wall very early where I'm like, nope, this is not for me. There has to be some point that you cross some line and you're like, oh, I get it now, you know?
I understand the concept. I get it that there's this seemingly insurmountable goal in front of you, and then when you defeat it, you're like, yes, I finally accomplished this. But you know, when I tried playing Dark Souls 2, and there's like that one monster that's in the corner, past right by the hut, and I saw him for the first time, and I'm like, well, he's big, but you know, he must be the starter monster to just like teach you how to survive. And then he turns around and
it's like, no,
whacks me, and I'm dead.
Very difficult.
that's the other thing. I'm not sure if I'm exactly into the idea of not knowing where the hell I'm going.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's very like, you know, figure your own way out. And here's the thing about those games. And again, this is an outsider perspective, so disregard me. I could be completely wrong. I don't get the appeal of these games, so take whatever I say with a grain of salt. But the thing about those games is I feel like the control scheme to me feels wrong. Like it feels wonky in some way, and it's hard to put my finger on exactly what it is. It's almost like there's sort of a delay between action and reaction. And so when I play it, I'm like, this is like an ultra hard game, but from an alternate universe where this is the normal control scheme. Like they didn't use sort of the average, normal, everyday action RPG control scheme that everyone's used to. They developed this entirely separate thing that's sort of in its own world, and then made a hard game version of that. So not only are you dealing with the challenge of it, you're also dealing with like kind of having to internalize this whole control paradigm that isn't necessarily coming naturally to you because it's something that doesn't really appear in any other games. You know? That's how it feels to me every time I pick one up, at least. I'm like,
I never got
like I feel like I could be good at this if I could like get my guy to do the thing I want him to do when I want him to do it. You know?
I never got used to the control scheme in Dark Souls 2. For like, I don't know what I was trying to do, but I think I was trying to like equip something, and like he used a health potion on himself. I'm like, I don't think I have too many of those.
I can't just burn through these like I can most action RPGs.
I will say that one of the good things about traveling and going to these to some of these press events for like preview coverage is that it does help me get these perspectives of different games that I wouldn't normally play. Like this is how I kind of wanted to give H1Z1 a chance, was getting the chance to go cover it and go, okay, I'm not normally into these types of games, but I'm going to step out of my comfort zone for this one, and for like 3-4 hours, and I'll come away with it going, all right, I can see myself spending a Saturday on this, like,
Yeah.
and it'll just encourage me to go out and learn. So hopefully I'll get that same thing when I eventually do see Dark Souls 3 and decide that'll be the jumping on point for me.
Like even when you aren't personally into a game, seeing it in a press event, the way they pitch it to you, you get a sense of what the appeal is supposed to be. You know, like what crowd they're going for, and that's sort of an interesting thing to see, even if it's something that isn't really your cup of tea. You know. So yeah, MOBAs, Dark Souls games, and whatever you would call the Souls games genre, and survival games.
Shit.
Yeah, survival shit. I think eventually we're just going to call the genre like Souls-like. Like we still have roguelike after rogue. Those are eventually just going to be called Souls-likes, or some similar weird naming scheme. Because how else do you define it? Like controller breaking games, you know. So our final topic for this week, this is another one from Bad Kitty 64. Asks, were there any games that surprised you to be on the Shack News community top 5 games of the year? Obviously, if you're listening to this, you probably know that we are in July and not December, so we haven't done our official Game of the Year countdown yet, but we did a sort of annual tradition of our Games of the Year so far, or Games of the Mid-Year, got me's, or got my. So it's sort of an annual tradition. It lets us check in with some of the biggest things that have gotten our attention so far, and then later on when we're doing our official Game of the Year list, it tends to help us, as individuals, look back at some things that we might otherwise forget about in the fall rush. So to refresh, the top 5 games of Chatty so far were number 5, a tie between Ori and the Blind Forest and Heroes of the Storm. Number 4, Pillars of Eternity. Number 3, Bloodborne. Number 2, City Skylines. And number 1, the Game of the Year, according to our Chatty, is The Witcher 3. So, was anyone surprised by any of these entries?
I was surprised at how handily The Witcher 3 took this poll. It won by a wide
margin. Already tallied the votes, so he has special insight here. Give us an idea of just how much The Witcher 3 crushed everything else.
I think it had about 6 times as many first place votes as City Skylines. So it crushed.
That is,
it was dominant.
Yeah. So that's one of those things that it's like, well, when we do our Game of the Year things, it's hard to see how something's going to beat The Witcher. Like maybe Fallout will come out and really amaze Chatty, but yeah, The Witcher 3 is a pretty strong GOTY contender for our Chatty.
Well, the other thing I should note is that some posters were pointing out that if the poll had been held maybe a week or 2 later, then we might have seen Batman.
That's true. I saw some people saying oh, Batman is now my Game of the Year, or it's up there at least. Batman isn't my
PC problems. People are really enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, Batman isn't one of mine. I feel like Batman is a solid. We gave it a 7 on Shack News, which is that's a solid game. That's a good game. How I kind of think about it on Shack News is an 8 is about where we start considering something for Game of the Year, but a 7 is that is a game that is worth your time and probably worth your money. It's a good game. But yeah, I don't know if Batman's gonna make it to the end of the year for me.
Batman was originally going to be on my mid-year list. I had it as one of my potentials, and then I reached a very specific tank battle, and after that, I was like, it's off the list. Gone.
I have a status somewhere in my Twitter feed that's there's 2 kinds of people who like the tank battles and people who have played that mission. So as far as surprises for me, I'm not surprised at Bloodborne. Our Chatty has been very vocal about loving Bloodborne, and The Witcher 3, obviously. I'm a little surprised Ori is so low, but I guess not that surprised because it is a platform exclusive. It's Xbox One and PC, I believe.
I was going to say I was kind of surprised to not see Axiom Verge make the cut at all, but
yeah.
Then I looked over the results and I was like, wow, it's a more crowded field than I expected.
I mean, I love Ori. That was my Game of the Year so far, so maybe that's factoring into it. But I can kind of see how I chalk it up to I bet a lot of people haven't played it. And I guess
there are people that are pulling out for Steam Summer Sale or something.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll get a bump. But I guess if anything surprises me, Pillars got a lot of attention, and Josh gave it a really glowing review, so that one didn't surprise me. City Skylines kind of surprised me. I know that there is a lot of love for it on the Chatty, and among our owner, Asif, loves it. But I don't know. I just don't remember much buzz about it at the time.
I attribute that to a lot.
I think it's had sustained life because of the mod scene, but I don't know if it really broke out as a success at first.
I attribute that to so many people still feeling disappointed over SimCity, and that City Skylines apparently did everything that SimCity did not.
I'm sure that factored in. It's scratching an itch that everyone wanted scratched, and EA got them all hyped to have it scratched.
Instead, they made the itch bigger.
Yeah, oh great, now I want it even more. But yeah, I'm sure that factors into it, and also, the mod scene has sort of kept that thing going, and to the extent that there were any rough patches in the initial release, it has smoothed those out, and sort of people can mod it and craft it in such a way that it can just become the SimCity game that people wanted. Anything that they didn't like about originally, they can mod out anyway. So yeah, I can see how it's it's definitely one of the most unique games on the list. Like a lot of the other games, it's like, okay, yeah, a MOBA, an action RPG, things like that. But it's like a sim game. Like when's the last time a sim game has really been in the top 5 anything? Like
The Sims. I guess The Sims.
yeah, the Sims. back when everyone was having fun drowning their citizens.
Suffocating them. People are still suffocating them to this very day.
They just don't have as many options now in The Sims 4, apparently.
I don't think Heroes of the Storm is that surprising, but it is kind of funny how this keeps working out for Blizzard, where they'll have a very long beta period that people treat as if it's the full release, and then when they finally call it official, it makes a bunch of Game of the Year lists. Because they did that with Hearthstone too. So
it's their strategy.
It's working out well for them.
Ever since it worked out so well with World of Warcraft, they're just like, the secret to success is extremely long beta periods.
We're gonna have a beta period for like a year.
Long. Would you say the Heroes beta was longer than the Dota beta, or the League beta, or anything like that?
I don't know. It's more a trend I'm noticing because of Blizzard than because of MOBAs. Because obviously, I noticed last year with Hearthstone, I had started playing Hearthstone the year before, and then they officially released it, last year, and I was like, well, now I get to officially call it my Game of the Year. I didn't get to before, but now I can. And I expect that's going to happen again with Heroes of the Storm because, like we said, it's it's got that Blizzard polish of being inviting to people who aren't necessarily.
It feels so easy to get into. It feels less intimidating, and it also I've mentioned this so many times. It's not as much the heroes. The heroes obviously make a big difference, but the maps means a lot too. The battlegrounds actually mean a lot when you're playing. Also,
Mm-hmm.
It gives you a different experience based on what you're playing. I actually really
from what I've heard,
that.
the maps are kind of a new map is almost like a new game mode because it comes with so many different wrinkles that affect the strategy so much. So yeah, I mean so I think the chatty list in general was more or less what I expected when I saw the list. I'm like, yep. Okay, those are the things that I've seen Chatty talking about a lot. But are there any other
Chatty
surprises?
needs to work harder to surprise us.
Yeah, come on, step it up, Chatty. I think the surprises for us were where things ranked in relation to each other and how, Ozzy said, how much The Witcher just ran away with it.
I actually expected Bloodborne to come in second and come closer to The Witcher, but Bloodborne just came in a solid third.
Yeah, that is a bit surprising. So, okay, I'm going to put a wrinkle on this question that Bad Kitty did not ask. Looking forward to the fall, what games do we think have a chance of dethroning The Witcher?
Batman has a chance already. Right now, I think if we retook the poll, I think it'd be a lot closer than it was last time. Steven's shaking his head no.
I don't think it will. I think when December comes and people are looking back at it, the way I try to think of games is very long view. So when I'm thinking about how I review a game, I'm when I'm looking back at this in December and I'm ranking my games of the year, am I really going to think this is amazing, or is it partly that I just played it and I'm excited about it? I don't think people are going to be excited about Batman when they're 6 months removed.
There's also obviously Fallout. Fallout might be.
I think Fallout is the best chance of dethroning The Witcher, unless it's just a broken, buggy piece of shit.
No, listen. Even if it is broken and buggy beyond imagination, people will play it because it's a Bethesda game and it's expected that it'll be buggy and broken.
They'll mod out the bugs.
New Vegas was buggy and broken, and that's still got a lot of
That guy's head just rotated on an axis.
When I played New Vegas for the first time, I saw an ant crawling backward with its head contorted in in a C shape, and I was just
part of the fun? Is that part of the fun of Bethesda games nowadays? It's let's see what crazy shit I'm going to see in this world. So yeah, Fallout I think is probably the strongest contender.
There are a few others. Rise of the Tomb Raider might have a shot. It has an outside chance.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Witcher 2 was our Chatty game of the year it came out, and I think there's just a lot of love on Chatty for The Witcher. So, it's going to be tough. It's going to be you got to bring it, Bethesda, to displace that.
So my question is the Witcher 3 expansion, since it's more than 20 hours long, should that count as its own game?
It's still an
Maybe
expansion.
it is an expansion, but that is one heck of an expansion. That is a long thing. They don't fuck around.
Oh, I was about to bring up some like PC expansions that are like around the same lines, and that made me think XCOM 2. XCOM 2 might have
yeah.
a chance
Tom's
of
got a pretty
Game of the Year.
decent shot. Yeah.
I often talk about my XCOM addiction in chat.
Which played into your massive chalice addiction.
Yeah.
So that's the show. We're gonna talk about what we're doing over the weekend in just a moment. But first, since I promised details, I suppose I have to give them. This is the season finale in quotes of the Chattycast. It's been a year. It's been a year's worth of shows at least. So we're gonna be changing up the format a little bit next week. Instead of farming for topics from the Chatty, starting next week, we are going to agree as hosts on a big topic and gather your thoughts from the Chatty and use that to fuel the discussion. So something that can fuel like a longer kind of discussion. That's sort of the format we're going to be going with. Less pressure on you guys to come up with topics, but we still want to hear what you think about topics. So we're going to be farming your thoughts on things. And also we're going to be recording our live show later in the day and on a Wednesday, I believe, instead of on Fridays. Just a little bit more time in the week to mix it down into a podcast format, and later in the day means more people will be able to watch the live version. So just a couple of fairly minor changes, and people are going to be back. Nothing too huge is changing, but you'll see the full thing in all of its splendor next week. But those are the main things that concern our listeners right now. Is that watch for the thread on Tuesday now. Instead of farming for topics, we're going to be saying, hey, here's our big topic for this week. Please tell us your thoughts, and then we'll be talking about that. So that is the show, and we're going to go around the horn and talk about what we're doing this weekend. Ozzy, what are you up to?
Well, I think it's going to be time for me to put put the Dark Knight to rest.
Put Batman to bed.
I'm almost at ending number 2. I'm probably going to put that story to bed just in time for Batgirl next week. So actually,
the Batmobile, just put it away.
Never see the Batmobile. I don't hate the Batmobile as much as most other people do. I actually enjoy a lot of the Batmobile.
I don't hate it, but I'm like, I'm
not hating it. I don't hate it. I'm just sick of it. I'm just done.
It's a good time to shout out to our old friend Zav D'Amatos, who I think said on Twitter he was listing off like the Batmobile and the Mako and like all these other and he goes, I just have an affinity for really bad video game vehicles.
There's a moment in Batman. Okay, very minor. I think this is a minor spoiler, but if you're worried about it, skip ahead 30 seconds or whatever. There's a moment in Batman that the Batmobile seems to be gone, and I felt like relieved. I was like,
yeah, me too.
And then it comes back like 2 minutes later, and I'm like, son of a bitch.
And not only does it come back, it's like a better version of it.
Yeah.
And then just like, Lucius, why are you holding back? What the hell?
It's like, wait, I had this thing sitting in my garage the whole time?
Obviously, they can't remove it permanently because that would like break the game. But it seemed like it was gone, and I was like, oh, thank God. That means that there's no more missions. But nope.
It's just like, screw you, Lucius, you're fired.
Yeah. It was a weird moment of like relief and then like a frustration when it just immediately came back. But yeah, so Ozzy, I will be interested as a comic follower. I'll be interested to hear what you think about the experience as a whole once you've seen the ending.
Oh, for sure. I don't think I'll be on next week. Oh no, we're doing this Wednesday now. Oh, maybe I won't be around on Wednesday.
We're doing this Wednesday, so you might be on. Yeah. Also, there's an element to fakery to the ending that like fools no one. There's like one spoil what it is, but it's one of those like fake out moments where it's like, okay, come on.
And then once I'm done with Batman, I'll probably be playing more Rocket League. And also, I might jump back into Mortal Kombat X just to try out the Predator.
Oh yeah, I need to try that out too. He looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Those fatalities are gross.
I don't know. The fatalities look kind of weak. Like for such a cool character, like they just look kind of tame.
Yeah, well, they're DLC characters, you know. He does blow holes through people. I mean,
Yeah, fair enough.
So does Goro. So does Sub-Zero. They all blow holes in
they all blow
people.
holes through people. Come on.
Roll for the new
But do they
decapitation.
keep Johnny Cage's skull as a trophy? No. I don't think they do. Stephen, what are you doing this weekend?
I have a wedding to go to tomorrow, but I think I'm going to try to sneak in some time with Ori since I have it, and
Oh, it's so good.
I haven't had
I love
time
Ori
to,
so much.
dive into it, and it was one of those games from last year's E3 that really really impressed me when I saw it. So
It's so good. It's so
I
good.
just
You're
need
in
to
for
make
a
time
treat.
for it.
I'm going to be probably attending a drive-through movie tonight, and which will be my daughter's first movie because drive-throughs are the only kind of movie that you should bring an infant to.
Drive-through movie? Like, do you drive really
Drive
fast?
drive in.
You drive really
Not drive-
fast and it just projects.
Yeah,
the
exactly. Like they've got speakers, and you have to keep it at 60 miles an hour. The billboards going by show you the frame. So, yeah, a drive-in movie because in a car, your baby whatever noises the baby makes aren't going to bug anybody else. So, we're going to try that out tonight, and I think they're playing Inside Out, which I've been wanting to see again after the first time. So.
And you promise not to cry this time.
No, I make no promises. No, not at all. I'm going to. I mean, I'm going to. Like, I'm going and fully acknowledging it. So, anyway, that is the show. This has been about an hour, so it's time for us to get out of here. Thank you for listening for the last year, and we promise that we'll be back next week with continuing to listen to your thoughts in a slightly different way.
Back and better than ever.
Yep. Stronger, better, stronger, faster. So for Ozzy Mejia and Stephen Wong, I am Steve Watts, and we will see you on Chatty.